Welcome to our closing plenary for Day 2 of the C-TAC Virtual Summit on Advanced Illness Care. I'm Arif Kamal, the host for today. I can only presume that your experience with the lively presentations and the breakout sessions and the opportunity to be part of the visioning labs has been informative and rewarding. You should know that your feedback and comments on the program offerings at this summit are eagerly invited. We've all had to adjust the way we meet, communicate, and learn in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. By moving from an in-person event to this virtual environment, C-TAC has worked hard to create a meaningful and worthwhile experience. Your comments on that effort will be appreciated. And speaking of appreciated, we want to make sure that you've had the opportunity to visit with some of the outstanding sponsors that have made this summit experience possible. Visit the virtual exhibits during transition times and take advantage of the information and programs offered by summit sponsors. And one final encouragement. There are several ways in which your comments and questions can be shared and ways in which you can reach out to other registered attendees with messages and invitations for further communication. Please take advantage of that capability. We may not have had coffee breaks and receptions, but we do still have the opportunity to communicate. Communication is at the heart of the way in which we're able to deliver palliative care for all with serious illness. A critical way for individuals to make sure their wishes and expectations are both known and followed is through advanced care planning. One of the dramatic discoveries of the current pandemic is the acknowledged need for each of us to have a clear, personal expression of our wishes. We're joined by one of the leading proponents of advanced care planning in this new age, the Executive Director of Respecting Choices, Stephanie Anderson.
How can we ensure that those who are sickest and most vulnerable have a high quality of life and equity in care, even during serious illness? Research plays an important role in knowing that the changes we make in caring for people truly are an improvement. I want to share the results of one such research study that supports C-TAC's Moonshot and Equity goals. Led by Dr. Maureen Lyon, the randomized control clinical study took place across 5 HIV clinics in a large urban area. And for those that don't know, HIV is human immunodeficiency virus. The researchers recruited nearly 450 people. All of them had HIV and were between the ages of 22 and 77. 86% of the participants were African American, 40% were below the poverty line, and almost half had a high school education or less. There was also a diversity of sexual orientation. These researchers wanted to know if, by having advanced care planning discussions, there would be better understanding of individuals' preferences for care between the individual and their surrogate decision maker, even if the individual's preferences changed over time, as we know they can, and they often do. To clarify, when I say surrogate decision maker, I mean the selected person to make decisions for the participant if or when they become unable to make these decisions for themselves. Now, I think we can all agree that this population would be fairly described as a vulnerable population, likely disenfranchised with low trust in the healthcare system. In fact, despite good relationships with their HIV clinics, the participants were not necessarily trusting of the healthcare system in general, as evidenced by low healthcare utilization. This raised a question when designing the study. Would participants stay involved? Would they stay enrolled in the study? I'll come back to this, but first, let's talk about how the study was designed. Individuals were helped to identify a surrogate decision maker, and then each pair, the patient and their surrogate, participated together in 2 facilitated advanced care planning conversations using the Respecting Choices program known as Next Steps. The researchers then separately interviewed the patient and the surrogate to see if they each had the same understanding of the patient's treatment preferences. In other words, if the surrogate answers matched what the patient says they would want. They did this interview to measure congruence immediately after the first advanced care planning conversation, and then again 4 more times over a year and a half to see if the surrogate's understanding changed as time passed. Now for the impressive findings. First, in this vulnerable population, Fear of engaging in the advanced care planning conversation was not a barrier. It was not a barrier. Almost 100% came back for the second conversation and remained engaged throughout the study. So yes, they stayed involved. Why weren't they afraid? And why did they stay involved? Well, the foundation of an advanced care planning conversation is to first discern what matters most to a person as the Respecting Choices Next Steps conversation is designed, to learn who and what is important to them, their goals, their values, and their beliefs before ever discussing preferences. People feel respected and listened to as a person and not merely thought of as a diagnosis. In the words of study participants, I quote, "Everything has been moving toward a positive direction after starting this study in terms of not stressing so much and thus my health improving in terms of weight gain after losing 30 pounds from stress." And from another participant, "It's kind of a little bit like therapy because I'm talking and it's like I'm not getting judged." This study found that early, yes, early advanced care planning was not feared, it was welcomed. There was decreased anxiety for patients, their surrogates, and their family. The conversations provided, and here I quote from many participants, the conversations provided peace of mind. This speaks to psychological well-being and perhaps a useful behavioral health intervention. Secondly, there was increased congruence between the patients and their surrogates. This congruence persisted over time. The surrogate knew and they reported the patient's preferences accurately, even as those preferences changed over time, demonstrating the enduring power of the conversation. So what's behind that? Again, let's go to the words of study participants. "I like how it opened up communication with my mom. And my daughter and I have gotten closer. I'm loving it. Gives me a greater appreciation of her depth of responsibility and caring for me." And yet another participant says, "Up until now, I never put much thought into everything. It has also made me realize how much I was asking of my surrogate to do on her own prior to this study without my input. Now I know she's better prepared. I know someone is going to stand by me, make a commitment to honor my treatment preferences." Conversations matter. Yes, conversations matter. Early advanced care planning before end of life that includes a surrogate decision maker can be an effective mechanism to bring peace of mind. Through opening lines of communication and building a trusting foundation, conversations continue, leaving a well-prepared surrogate decision maker to advocate for individuals who don't currently feel empowered or represented in our healthcare system. This is what we refer to as the enduring power of the conversation. It has been my pleasure to have the opportunity to present this important work and elevate these critical considerations as we work together to achieve the Moonshot goal. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Keisha Dawson, and I am an African-American female that actually I turned 41 today. I was diagnosed with colon cancer back 10 years ago. And when I was first diagnosed, my doctor just could not believe that I was 30 years old with stage 3 colorectal cancer. Let me be correct. My grandmother, who went with me when I got my first colonoscopy, had to actually console the doctor and let him know, hey, she's going to be okay. We are a faith-driven family. We believe in God, and we know that she's going to beat this. I just was shocked because I just know people my age are normally not diagnosed with colorectal cancer. So I just cannot believe that I actually had colorectal cancer. I was a single mother with 4 children, and I'm like, how did I get this terrible disease? Fast forward, I went through surgeries, 2 different surgeries. I went through chemotherapy, radiation, but in 11 years ago, in October. Today, I'm still surviving. So I do know that with the medication, with the education that the physicians had, and with my faith, I don't want to leave my faith out because I do know that God healed my body. My prayer was to let me see my children get grown. Like I prayed every day. I'm like, Lord, if you got to take me, I want to be able to see my children get grown. Please let me survive. So far, my youngest daughter is 13. My other girls are all older than 18. So he answered those prayers for me. And I'm very thankful for the healthcare industry, the knowledge the providers had, all of the clinical trials, because I was in a clinical trial, that I was able to survive that terrible disease. I would say the first thing that when I went to my physician's office, they asked me what zip code that I lived in. And I'm like, at the time I lived in the West End, the poorest part of town. I grew up in the poorest part of town. That's where my family lived at, and that's where I was raised at. And they had like a map in there, and they had like pins where they mapped, I guess, the people that would get certain types of cancer. And the type of cancer that I had was known in the area because it's the food, there's no healthy restaurants. There's no good food options at all. It's only like fried foods, mom and pop stores. The community is about like rubber town, and that area is actually has like a lot of bad chemical smells, and it just stinks really bad. So they was like, oh, we have a lot of people that's diagnosed with this disease in that area. And I was like, it's me, like, you won't do anything to clear it up? I'm like, are you serious? In an area where all these people are catching cancer. It was always like breast cancer, colon cancer, things like that. So I feel like, I can't say the community, but I feel like just the air, the quality of air, the quality of food probably had a big deal of me, the type of cancer that I had. I hate to say it, but I feel like I did get better treatment because I chose to seek out to go to better providers in different areas that I felt that would give me better treatment versus my mom had to settle with the treatment for people who didn't have insurance and for a physician that would take her. So I do feel like that was a difference in my care and also in my mother's care. When I think about COVID-19, it gives me anxiety because I feel like that my immune system was suppressed with the chemo and the radiation. I feel like I'm at a higher risk of catching COVID. Even though it's been years since I took chemo, there's still a difference in my body. Like after chemo, I didn't feel the same way that I used to feel. You know, certain things that hurt a little more. I feel like that I'm at a high risk. So therefore, since I'm at a high risk, I'm always conscious of my children. It's kind of like a fear. So it's kind of like, yeah, I feared, but because I was able to beat cancer, nothing in this world that I can't beat.